Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, I should say. My name is Jean Coltaz. I'm presiding member for the meeting today. I declare the meeting open at 2:04 p.m. In doing so, I acknowledge we're hosting this meeting on the traditional land of the MODAP people of the Kwinana Nation. We acknowledge the Aboriginal people as a traditional Western Australia. Pay respects to elders past and present and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters and community. The meeting will be run in accordance with DAP Standing Orders 2024 under the Planning and Development Act, or Planning and Development Assessment Panels regulations of 2011. The meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the DAP website in accordance with Regulation 42A of the Planning and Development Assessment Panel Regulations 2011, and members are invited to announce their name and title prior to speaking. During the meeting, panel members may refer to technical devices to assist them in considering the information before them. At the meeting today, present are myself, presiding member, Karen Hyde to my left as deputy presiding member, and Mike Moritz to my left as well as specialist member. From the City of Cockburn, we have Councillor Tom Weidenbach and Councillor Mike Separovich. And for Part C of the meeting, Councillor Barry Winmar and Councillor Matthew Rouse from the City of Kwinana as well. Apologies, I have Councillor Phoebe Cork, local government member from the City of Cockburn. Item 3 on our agenda is members on leave of absence, there are none. And item 4, noting of minutes. The minutes of previous meetings are on the DAP website. Part B of the meeting, we have an application, panel members and the councillors from the City of Cockburn. What I'll do now under item 1 is confirm that all panel members have duly declared all of the documentation contained within Part B of the agenda. So panel members, raise your hands if you're with it. Thank you. Declarations of interest. I have no declarations at this point. Do panel members have any interest to declare? Councillors, is this item considered at a council meeting?
No.
Okay. Okay, so item 3 on the agenda is the application for lot 1000 Berrigan Drive, Jandakot, the Glen Iris Local Centre. No presentations have been received. However, the following members of the applicant team are available to take questions: George Hadji-Gabriel, Mr. Greg Pearce and Mr. Graham Taylor. Panel members, are there any questions of presenters or?
Not from me.
I've got one if I can.
Councillor Separovich.
I'm trying to find the exact point in here, but when it's talking about the noise mitigation, the acoustic assessment recommends the following mitigation measures be adopted: construction of a 3-metre high solid barrier wall along the northwestern edge of the service and delivery area. And then it says that the assessment found that noise emissions associated with the proposed development will comply with the APR, subject to all refrigerated truck deliveries occurring outside of the night period between 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. I can't find that 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. actually being a condition at any other point in the document. So I'm wondering, does that need to be specifically stated as a condition, or is it implied?
Is that a question to the applicant team, or would that
might even be a question to the City of Cockburn officers if they're in here as well?
Well, they are, and for the sake of clarity, council officers, are you familiar with the question?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Separovich.
I think to answer your question, I might just have to quickly double check the acoustic report that was provided, but my understanding is that those hours are established in the acoustic report, and then a condition of or a recommended condition of the development approval will be that they adhere to whatever is established in the acoustic report, the recommendations of the report. So there would be an applied restriction on it, but I will just bring that up now and double check.
Yeah, it's page 20 of the road group report, I believe.
Thanks.
Okay, well,
And then second question I've got is about the provision of parking. Now, there's a very, very wide variance in the amount of parking that is required in here. We've got the town planning scheme, which seems to say that 180 bays are needed, which I think is way too many. 180 bays for the bistro. And then there's another part of here where it's saying that there's 3.5 bays needed for the bistro. Now, I think 3.5 might be a little too few, but 180 seems like way too many. How are we actually determining how many are going to be needed? Or are we just, averaging out the two of them?
Councillor, sorry, was that for the city? I assume it is.
Yes.
Yeah, I can certainly understand the concern. I guess the reality of it is it's very difficult to just pluck a number from any kind of technical document or internal report and then apply that universally across all of a local government area. What was sort of discussed in the Responsible Authority report was that there are kind of these different documents that do require different parking amounts, and depending on which one is used, obviously you get a surplus or you get a shortfall. The applicant's transport impact assessment kind of took a bunch of different reasons as to why a shortfall could be supported. Namely, its proximity to public transport, the pedestrian links that are being proposed, access through to the existing commercial site and the anticipated reciprocal rights easement through there. So all that in mind, the city is at this point comfortable with the level of parking that has been provided, noting that there is a statutory shortfall when compared against the requirements of Town Planning Scheme 3. But that being said, we were generally comfortable to move forward based on the applicant's own justification. The other thing I think is important to note as well, because draft Local Planning Scheme 13 was referenced in the applicant's report, that they had kind of relied on to indicate again that there was an acceptable level of parking that was provided. It's noted in the report that the city considers that not a seriously entertained document, and we don't want to kind of set a precedent that can be used in the future for assessment. However, in dealing with the Department of Planning at the moment through that process, it seems to us that it's likely that parking rates will be removed from planning schemes at some point in the future and instead replaced with the WA Planning Manual, which is outlined in the RA.
Okay, thank you then.
Okay.
Nothing further from me then.
Okay, now any questions of the presenters, the applicant team? Yes, Karen?
Thank you, Presiding Member. Karen Hyde speaking. The design review panel suggested some improvements or adaptations to improve pedestrian connectivity. And I'd like to find out what was done in that respect by the applicant, and this is a question to the applicant, and how they feel that responded to the DRP's comments, and whether in doing so there was consideration of any SEPTED issues or any SEPTED assessment. That might be for Mr. Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll endeavour to answer that question. Yes, I'm Graham Taylor from Place Fabric. We were the architects for this project. So there was some amendment made to the plans after the design review panel, which included the upgrading of and enhancement of the pedestrian connectivity through the site. I'm not sure what drawings you have access to, but we certainly made all the connections that were recommended by the DRP as far as we're aware, and I believe the planning staff at the City of Cockburn have accepted that, and that is what is that's what is before you today. As far as SEPTED goes, we didn't formalise a SEPTED report, but as I usually say as an architect, as part of our exercise in designing, we do design for safety. I think there's a drawing in the pack, or there was a drawing in the pack that was presented to the design review panel that showed how much glazing there is externally on the centre to demonstrate how much surveillance there is from the centre and around its edges. So we feel pretty comfortable that it's a safe community space, enhanced of course by the fact that the retailers and the use with the tavern is operating, generally speaking, from 6 a.m. till midnight on some nights. So therefore, not only have you got surveillance by the design, but you've got surveillance by the use.
Okay.
Is that a satisfactory answer?
Yes, thank you. I was just contemplating that the facilities, end of trip, etc., sort of out near the service yard and up a little kind of enclosed lane, and just wondering, they're just for staff, or are they for public amenities as well? And just, you know, what level of surveillance there is particularly for those amenities?
So the toilets, which are the male, female and UAT, are for the public and for staff. The end of trip facilities are typically for staff, and they will be locked and accessed by key card or the like. There's an automated sliding glass door on the courtyard end of that corridor. The corridor has a very slight change of direction in it, but there'll be CCTV camera in that corridor to monitor who's in and out. That door at the end, this corridor acts as a service passageway for the few retailers that go to the bin area at the back there, but the rear door will be locked and again only accessible by key. As an architect doing retail, we don't like to have 2 points, and possibly that's your question, 2 points of access and egress from a toilet corridor so that somebody can't disappear out the back unless they have control to that locking mechanism for the rear door. So there's only one way in and one way out, which we think is safe. I think it's not uncommon for us to design like that. It's a nice white lit corridor. You haven't seen the renders of it, but the materiality running through that corridor is to a higher standard, and the fit out of those amenities are to a higher standard. All the walls are fully tiled so that we minimise the impact of antisocial behaviour and graffiti vandalism.
Okay.
All those sorts of things.
Thank you for that answer. I have one other question, if I
Go
may.
ahead.
Thank you. There was also some commentary, and it was considered in the context of one of the local planning policies, but the wall around the tavern and whether that, you know, created too much of a barrier visually, physically, etc., and how you've responded to that.
As you may know, we have done a few pubs, and it's a balancing act between providing that visual connection between the exterior space and the interior space, but providing some monitoring of the number of people going in and out. So you need some control over the number of access points or gates into the site, and also just so that the tenant doesn't have to take all of his furniture every night, which is impractical because of the volume of it, so that it doesn't get pilfered over the fence, if you like. But I'm just going to use an example here because it's well, I part own the Rosemount Hotel. If you've ever been there in North Perth, it's a bit of brick piers with mesh infill with landscape growing through it, so you can see in and out. But it's a clear delineation between the licensed area and the non-licensed area, and the method that we're using is much the same.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, any other further question of panel members of the applicants? If not, are there any specific questions of the council staff that panel members may wish to make?
Thank you very much. Just in terms of bushfire, the RAR talks to the fact that these are not sensitive uses, and therefore no evacuation plan, etc., is required, and that the level of risk is low. However, I also notice in the RAR that there are a number of other land uses which could occur in this centre without the need for a change of use under the planning framework, one of which is childcare, which is a sensitive use. So perhaps you could enlighten me as to how that might be dealt with, and if there's any advice or that's required as part of an advisory note in that regard. Thank you.
Yeah, excuse me. Thank you, Karen. I think in this case, addressing the question you've raised, I think it's kind of a bit of a quirk of the planning system as it is, where you have these P uses. It is for the purpose that these businesses can move in without having to do those sort of technical requirements. That being said, as mentioned, the bushfire risk is low, and as the Glen Iris estate develops, it would only be, we anticipate that would be even lower once, you know, some of the vegetation is removed and the development site is either vacant or unmanaged. I am not 100% sure, but I would assume that under other legislation, childcare protection related legislation, there probably would be a requirement for these sort of places to have evacuation plans in any case, noting that the kind of use that it is, it just really wouldn't be the local government that would have a say in that through the planning process.
Okay.
And while I have the floor, if you don't mind, just to answer Councillor Saparavich's question that he had raised before about the operating times. So I was correct. Page 14 of the acoustic report that was provided just under table 8.8 recommends that the deliveries don't occur during the nighttime period. So the compliance with the acoustic report through the conditions would be an implied restriction on the operating times.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just one other question. Would you normally anticipate requiring an operational management plan for the tavern, or do you regard that other legislation and licensing controls deal with all of those matters adequately from the city's experience?
That's Riley.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. I think in this case, it's certainly warranted, given that some of the objections raised by the community did relate to the operations of the tavern and what specifically it was going to be. Those sort of details weren't really provided in the application, and we don't expect that they would be either. But given the concerns raised by the community, and also just some of the details that we don't yet know that aren't really determined to a planning approval. For example, where are the fresco areas going to store their outdoor furniture? How is it going to be brought in? What the operating times are? Those sort of things. I think it's fair enough to request one in this case.
So just in that respect, I didn't, forgive me if I've overlooked it, but I didn't actually see that as a condition.
Is it not? Yeah, look, I would be happy to have that on. Apologies, that's an omission from our part. But like, I don't know if it was sort of addressed earlier, there would be a requirement to obtain separate liquor licenses as well, where they usually do have to provide those sort of things, as well as do a community risk assessment as part of their liquor licensing process, which obviously isn't governed by the local government. But my understanding is that those are required through that process as well.
Yeah, and so what things would you anticipate to be within that? Because the operational management plans are usually quite succinct and brief. What sort of things would you expect to see in that?
Probably, as you mentioned, they usually are quite succinct, so it'd probably be things such as operating times, how they intend to pack up the place, staffing levels on particular days or particular evenings. Again, because these sort of management plans aren't really determinative, in those cases, we're usually happy to just have a condition and then the details can be worked offline post-approval.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nothing more from me. Thank you.
Nothing further, no further questions of panel members or the applicants. If that's the case, then we can move on to the item itself under the responsible authority report. We do have a report here for approval conditions. In order we can discuss it, can I have a mover and seconder for the item, please? Moved, Councillor Separovich. Second, Mr. Morris. Councillor Separovich, you'd like to speak to the item, please?
No, it seems fairly unobjectionable. I'm more than happy to move it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Morris, do you wish to speak to the item?
Just briefly, I'm comfortable with the proposal. It appears that the city's officers have done a good job of reviewing it, and the design review panel has provided its input, and the proponent have responded in a way to that. And I'm thankful to my colleagues here for asking those other couple of questions. I think it's going to be an amending motion.
Thank you. Any other panel members wish to speak to the item? Karen?
Thank you, presiding member. Yes, I'm in support of this application and approval of it. I think it is consistent with the scheme, the structure plan, also the LDP. So very consistent in the sense of an overarching and fairly comprehensive planning framework. I note the concerns over parking, but I think it depends which way you look at it. And I do agree with the councillor that the requirement under the planning scheme is somewhat onerous. And I note that if it was assessed under the commission guidelines, there'd actually be a surplus of parking. So I'm comfortable with where the scheme has landed on that. I'm comfortable with the assessment of landscape, noting that there might be technically a shortfall, but there's an abundance of trees, which I think is a good outcome. And I'm satisfied with the applicant's response to my questions regarding safety and legibility. I would like to propose, presiding member, a new condition to request that the applicant prepares an operational management plan for the tavern to the satisfaction of the city, and I think that should be prior to occupancy.
Okay, thank you. That's the amending motion. You've moved that. Do I have a seconder? Yes, Mr. Morris. Karen, you wish to speak further?
Just briefly, as was noted by the officers, there was some concern coming from the community around the way that this would operate and be managed, etc. And I'm sure it will be appropriately managed, but I think it is very useful to have these management plans in place, both from the point of view of the approval authority, but also from the point of view of the applicant, just to be able to clarify what is anticipated and expected moving forward. And it's a very evident aspect for the community as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Seconder, wish to speak to the item for the amendment?
No, I think it's straightforward and sensible.
Councillor Separo.
Question. Yeah, I'm wondering, the actual applicant isn't the eventual operator of the tavern, though, is it? Like, does the tavern have an actual operator yet? Because what exactly are we asking for if we want like an operational plan for the tavern, but the tavern itself hasn't designated who's going to be operating the tavern yet? We're not actually asking the people that are going to have to enact that plan to create it, are we?
Well, from a practical point of view, the condition will sit with the approval, and when the operator is there, then the operator may have to prepare that to the satisfaction of council prior to their occupancy.
Yeah, okay.
So we're not asking anyone to do anything at this stage.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment? If not, I'll put the amendment. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Karen, you wish to continue?
No, I'm
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak to the item, councillors? No?
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll just speak to the item. I think that it's evident that there's support for it. It went through a public consultation phase with pretty much unanimous support. Agency referrals, there were no objection. Design review panel went through that, and there were a few modifications which the proponents made. The planning assessment was supportive on issues such as vehicle access, parking, noise attenuation, landscaping, the alfresco dining issue, and bushfire management. So I'm supportive of the application as well. That being the case, I will ask the mover to close debate on the item.
No, nothing further to add on what you said.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll put the item as amended. All in favour? That's unanimous as well. Thank you very much for that. Item on the agenda for Form 2 DAP applications, there are none. Section 31 SAP reconsideration, there are none. I'd like to thank Councillor Weidebar and Councillor Separovich for your attendance, and also the staff.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Move on to the next item with the town of Kwinana. We'll marshal them together. Thank you very much. Okay. Councillors are there. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to part C of the agenda, City of Kwinana. In doing so, I will confirm all panel members have duly considered all of the documentation contained within part C of the agenda and part C related information. Please raise your hand if you have. Thank you. Item 2, disclosures of interest. Can I seek whether the councillors were participated in any of the items on this agenda with council?
No, this hasn't come to council for a decision.
Okay, thank you. All right, then we have 2 items on the agenda, 3.1 and 3.2. It has been a request to shift item 3.2 forward to 3.1. I'll seek agreement of the panel members for that to occur. All in favour? Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item 3.2 now, which is an application for underground ammonium nitrate pipeline. We do have a presenter, Mr. Matt Raymond. Matt, please, you have 3 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you. Very brief. We support the City of Kwinana's recommendation for the proposed infrastructure pipeline for the urea ammonium nitrate pipeline. The pipeline will replace the current method of transporting this by truck from Kwinana Bulk Jetty to the Summit Fertiliser existing storage ponds, which are located on Summit's premises on Office Road in Kwinana Beach. So the outcome of this project will improve efficiency of the movement of that, reducing the need for heavy vehicle movements back and forth between the jetties. So that's a good outcome. Project team here have been working with various stakeholders over the last, I think it's quite some time now, over a year, including the city, Main Road, Freo, Fremantle Port Authority, Dunphy Bunbury Natural Gas Pipeline, plus many others to reach this point. So we have no objection to the proposed 10 conditions and associated advice notes, which form the City of Kwinana's RAR. Behind me, I have the Summit Rural representatives who are available today for any.
Thank you. Panel members, any questions of Mr. Raymond?
None from me.
None from me, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Are there any questions of the council staff on this item?
None.
Aaron? Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
I haven't been to one of these. When do other people comment or ask questions? Would that be now or some other time?
Sorry, are you from?
Coogee Chemicals.
You're from Coogee.
Coogee Chemicals, which is on the path of
We didn't receive a presentation request from you. You submitted a presentation request at all?
Sorry, in that case, we don't take questions from, if you haven't put in a presentation request. I'm sorry. Presuming you're opposing or objecting, are you?
I have concerns.
Okay, all right. Well, unfortunately, we can't take questions from you at this stage, but unless panel members all agree, I presume.
Discretion to.
Yes, I'll let you make a verbal presentation if you wish. We'll consider that in due course, but at the moment we'll allow these presenters the applicants to make their submission. Panel members, any questions of the staff? Yes, Karen.
Thank you, presiding member. I just wanted to check that the condition that refers to the MRS, in your opinion, is that required? Given the change of legislation, are there still matters under the Metropolitan Region scheme that that's conditions? Sorry, you're a bit muffled.
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. So I believe that this pipeline will still require approval under the MRS because portions of it are within 100 metres of the railways reserve. So it's still the type of application that has been identified as requiring development under the MRS.
Right. Okay. And also, could you confirm for me, there was some mention in the RAR, I think it probably refers to those parts that cross the railway reserve. It might be sections 8 and 10. Just whether that is included or excluded from approval as part of this decision or the RAR.
So the section that covers that goes over the railway reserve, I'm not sure what section that is, but any part of the pipeline that is over the railways reserve is not part of this RAR report or this decision, because that would purely be the Metropolitan Region scheme, and the decision for that is the WPC.
Right. So hence the comment in the RAR, those sections of the pipeline are located on regional reserves for railways are subject to a separate report prepared by WAPC. So, okay, so that's a separate part of the approval that we're not party to.
Yes,
Okay.
because the city doesn't have delegation for that section of the pipeline.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions of council staff? If not, I will allow Coogee Chemicals to make a presentation. You have 3 minutes, and can I ask whether you were familiar with the application during the course of its being assessed?
We have responded in the past, and my colleague here, who's shy, has been involved in the previous responses. Council.
Did the council canvass you?
Yes.
You were part of the public submissions?
Yes.
Did you make a submission?
Yes, we did.
That didn't appear on the agenda. Was it a formal submission that you made, or was it?
Yes.
The local government? Yeah, it would have been under that. Okay, well, give us your comments on this application, please. Sorry, your name is again?
Russell McKenzie, Manager of Innovation Project Development for Coogee Chemicals.
Manager of?
Innovation
and
Project Development.
And Project Development.
Which could mean anything. And does.
Okay, Russell, if you'd like to make, you have 3 minutes.
So we have a number of concerns. The first, off the top of my head, is that the proposed route is quite circuitous. It crosses a number of roads and pipelines and other assets, not just ours, but everyone's. And even for Summit, I would think that is a second choice compared to easier, more straightforward routes. That's, I guess, not just economic, but conflict of other pipelines and rail and other underground services. The route that is the obvious one, and we did talk to someone about this, I guess, 3 years ago, or maybe more, goes up the designated corridor, which is specified for pipelines going to the jetty. It's a 70-metre wide corridor straight from Summit all the way straight through the jetty. And we in the past have looked at pipes along that road. We have a number of pipes along the road towards the port, and we were informed that we would not be allowed to put any more pipes along that road because of the fact that it's already too constricted. So our concern is that if it was too constricted for us, how is it not too constricted for others in terms of improving other services that are along there? The designated pipe route includes crossing over the railway lines and the roads. We have a pipe bridge across that, which we use to get across there. Another option is to go underneath those railway lines, and that would be a way that would be not interfering with either our or other people's pipelines or comms, or high voltage, or natural gas pipeline. Definitely less than the currently proposed route. What did I miss out, Chris? I feel sure there's more. So we have had some contact with an engineering company that was looking at that route, I guess, a couple of years ago, and we provided information that indicated that certainly our pipe bridge was able to be modified to take additional pipelines, and it was up to Summit and those engineers to have those discussions with other parties who may have interest on our pipe bridge as well. That's, in other words, contractually beyond our remit, but certainly technically it's possible and absolutely doable from a technical perspective.
Okay, well, thank you. Do any of the panel members wish to ask questions of the presenter?
Just one, you will have been able to read the Responsible Authority report that was publicly advertised.
I haven't personally read that. Chris has been involved in that.
You would see that the city is satisfied that this is a practical solution and that the application is supportable from their point of view. Okay, just wanted to know that you'd had a chance to read the material in front of us.
And I believe that's what we responded to say that it's what anything's practical if you go the most crazy way, but it doesn't mean it's the most logical, sensible, or safest way. We think that this is flawed, and they should consider other options.
Thank you.
Okay, but you're also aware that it was canvassed with a number of authorities and other landowners, Development WA and others, and they've all supported it? Yep, okay. All right, well, in the absence of any formal submission which we could assess, or the council could assess as part of the Responsible Authority report, we'll take on board your comments. Other panel members, do you have questions of the presenters? If not, I'll ask panel members if they've got questions of the council staff. Do you have any comments to make on the verbal presentation that we've just had, council staff? No? Okay. Thank you, Mr. McKenzie. Okay, well, are there any other questions of council staff at this stage from presenters? If not, well, we'll move on to the item, and in order that we can discuss it, may I have a mover and seconder for the item? Moved, Councillor Rouse. Seconder? Mr. Morris. Oh, sorry, Councillor Winmar, you're seconder. Thank you. Yes, okay, councillor Rouse.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Presiding Member, and thank Mr. McKenzie for his verbal presentation, deputation there. It's hard. While I can take his comments on board, it's hard to actually evaluate those, especially the comment about the pipeline being too constricted, because we don't really have any confirmation of that by the relevant authorities. There's been no objections from those major authorities, and the city's satisfied with the proposal, so I'm in favour. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Winmar as seconder.
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member. In relation to this particular application and the further use of that pipeline and the invariably increased traffic and heavy haulage that's going to be in that area in the Western Trade Corridor, I'm in support of the application that takes these types of chemicals off the road if there's a more convenient, more safe way to be able to do that. I'd also like to thank Coogee Chemicals also for that extra information. And in the same regard as Councillor Rouse, do agree that there were nothing that was of that regard in the reports that were supporting this application, as well as our council staff and members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, panel members wish to speak to the item? No.
Just I reflect the comments by the mover and the seconder, but I think this will support the industrial efficiencies, and I'm comfortable with the assessment that the city has prepared, and note that there were no objections from any of the statutory undertakers, the other departments, state departments, so happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you, and yes, I think that this is a essential piece of infrastructure to transport urea ammonium nitrate. It is an underground undertaking, so it will reduce the impact of vehicles travelling through the locality. It's been subject to detailed assessment to ensure it's not susceptible to corrosion and impact from other matters such as plant roots and insects. And all relevant authorities were consulted and were supportive. And during construction, impacts will be managed under the construction management plan that the proponents will be required to prepare, lodge and adhere to. Therefore, I'm in support of it as well. And pity that Coogee Chemicals weren't able to assist with a formal submission during the statutory process, but we have listened to them anyway. So I will now go back to the mover to close debate on the item.
Nothing further.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, I'll put the recommendation as published. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move back to next item of the agenda. MODAP application, there are none. Item 5, settler considerations, there are none. Thank you, Councillors Rouse and... Oh, you're staying, sorry. I forgot, I had City of Cockburn written down again. All right, okay, thank you. Everybody's moved on. Let's move on to the next item, which is the item 3.1, alterations and additions to Kwinana Marketplace Shopping Centre. We have a number of presenters, starting with Mr. Allarding. Steve, would you like to make your presentation, please? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Presiding Member and DAP members, for the opportunity to present today. We prepared a detailed submission opposing the application, principally as it applies to the proposed tavern and licensed restaurant uses. The reason for that is that both the historical and most recent planning documents adopted by the city have affirmed a clear strategy for how they wish to have the city centre developed, and we submit that this proposal is not consistent with that intent. I provided a PowerPoint. I don't know if it's available to see on in front of you or not, but if I can refer to the slide numbers, do you have that access available, presiding member?
I'm not sure, but we do have them on our laptops in front of us, and
Okay.
so if you'd like to speak to that.
So both the Kwinana scheme and the master plan outline the intended urban form and the location for the various strategic land uses in the town centre. And to achieve that, they've divided the city centre into a series of land use precincts which define their core function, which is shown on that first slide. So if we go to that first slide, we can see that the subject site is located within the shopping business zone and specifically within the retail precinct. And that precinct is intended to function as the primary major retail shopping space for the city centre. If you go to the next slide, slide 2, you can see there's a circular oval which identifies Chisholm Avenue. And this area is the located area that's been set aside as the dedicated eating and entertainment precinct located along Chisholm Avenue. And the two precincts they've identified there is the market precinct and the entertainment eating house precinct. So through the city's various planning documents, Chisholm Avenue has consistently been described as the main street to be promoted to consolidate uses related to entertainment and eating house activities. And the concern that we have with this is that the proposal has the potential to undermine the purpose by creating a new entertainment destination with the development of a significant floor space comprising the tavern and the licensed restaurant activity. And this is contrary to the stated intent under that planning framework, with a food and beverage offering that goes well beyond the shopping centre's core retail function as described under the planning framework. If we have a quick look at slide 3, we can see the reflection with respect to the function of Chisholm Avenue as the primary focus of public activity in the city. And it's been on that basis that investment by the business community has occurred to fulfil that intended purpose. And it's, thank you. So you can see that's the focus along Chisholm Avenue, which is the area identified in that oval part, and that's the focus as to why people in the city centre have invested in accordance with that adopted strategy. And it's the location where larger activities like tavern and licensed restaurants are intended to be located to ensure that there is a consolidated, vibrant and cohesive entertainment focus taking place. Because one of the issues that the city's scheme has identified is the lack of a developed main street, and there is a need to consolidate its function as a main street whilst preserving its primacy for the public activity and entertainment to occur. So our concern is this will undermine that, because it's a significant offering involved with the tavern and the licensed restaurant. And it's not a question of commercial competition. It's really a matter of orderly and proper planning to meet that intended planning framework that's been set out by the city. If we have a look at the next slide, slide 4, you can see that this is a recent document from 2023, and it identifies and reaffirms the consolidation of what's the retail precinct and what's the Main Street precinct. So it's not just an historical perspective we're presenting from the scheme, it's been reaffirmed through the various updated documents for the city centre. And I guess just to leave the position that the applicant has presented is that they've said that the proposal is consistent with the master plan because it's providing activation along the western edge, along Gilmore Avenue. Well, we don't disagree with that, but we definitely disagree that it's that asserts that it provides activation that renders it consistent with the master plan. Because whilst we acknowledge that there is an intention to have activation along that western precinct, there's a number of uses that are already permitted under the zone which can provide that function, including eating house and amusement facilities. So it's not as though there's a suggestion that you can't activate that frontage. What we're saying is that the uses involving licensed restaurant and taverns should be located where the planning framework intended them to be located there. So our concern is that we'll hear from the operators along Chisholm Avenue today, but splitting the precincts and duplicating the uses is likely to have a significant effect that will set back the intended function of Chisholm Avenue and the investment that goes into that area. And as a matter of orderly and proper planning, we don't believe this is an appropriate development in its current form, having those uses as part of that to be approved by the DAP.
Thank you, Steve. Your time is expired now. Thank you very much. I think we've got the gist of it all. Our next presenter is Mr. Brian Sullivan from Sullivan Property Consultants. However, does anyone have a question of Mr. Allarding at this stage?
Well, I did actually, thank you,
Okay,
presiding
yes,
member. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Allarding. In the eating and entertainment precinct, I'm not sure, I don't think tavern is actually a predominant use in that area according to the planning framework. Am I correct?
Well, it's an essay. Sorry, can you explain that, ask that question again?
Yes, so there are uses which are predominant, which are outlined for each of the precincts. And my understanding was that a tavern wasn't necessarily identified as a predominant use in the entertainment and eating precinct that you're referring to.
Yeah, I can't comment about what the document that you're referring to says about whether it's predominant or not, but I think it is acknowledged by the officers that the tavern and the licensed restaurant are the key components that I think is in dispute, because I think there is a recognition.
I'm not suggesting that isn't the case. I just wanted your response to that question, but thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Steve. Any other questions of Mr. Allarding? I'll reserve the questioning of officers on the presentations later. Yes, sorry, Mr. Sullivan, if you'd like to make your presentation, please.
Right. Firstly, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to speak and present. So we are the people that bought a couple of properties on Chisholm Avenue. And we first bought a property with restaurants and 24-hour active fitness in about 2011, 12. And we did so after substantial research into the city, what they were doing with the main street. The main impetus of doing that was we actually liked the vision of the city, trying to establish a main street and trying to establish a main street based around entertainment style usages. Made a lot of sense to us, and we liked the concept, and we thought it would be we had strength and positive feedback from the city of Kwinana about what they were doing, and we really liked it. We thought this is something which we want to invest in. This is a city which has got its act together, and it's going to come up with a vibrant main street. We saw the beautification works done to the main street, and we could see they're on the right track. You've got the dome opening there. So we then went and bought a second property. Again, this is even more entertainment style. We bought the Kwinana Tavern, which is on the corner of Robolso and Chisholm Avenue. And again, we did so because we could see the development of the main street. We could see where the city were heading. We understood it would become hopefully the focus. And there's a lot of work to be done to make that a successful main street. And we see that the city itself does need a successful and vibrant main street, and it does need a successful and vibrant entertaining precinct. And so when we've invested now, we've probably got $8 to $10 million invested on that street based on that belief, understanding, strategy. We see this as a major movement away from that. You're taking the main street, you're taking the main provision of the main focus of the main street, which is its entertainment, and you're moving it to another spot. You're moving it to where retail should be. And we're not saying they shouldn't engage and make that a more vibrant section, but you're moving that entertainment precinct away. You're splitting it in two, and you will create potentially a dead main street. I see it as a real major issue, and you don't have to have too many examples to see dead main streets throughout the West Australia community, regional and local. What we do also see is that the proponent themselves could quite easily have accommodated entertainment style usages on Chisholm Avenue, but they have chosen not to, because it's better for the applicant to have the entertainment and retail precinct together. It is not better for the city, and it's certainly not better for the residents to have that precinct split in two and have a weak and less vibrant and less workable Main Street. And so that's, I know it's a bit passionate, but that's honestly how I feel. I thought the city were on the right track. I think this is a major divergence from that, and I think it's a major mistake. And it's not about competition. It's about having the right provision of the right services in the right spot so that they all feed off of each other and they all benefit from each other's location. I've been in retail for 40 years of my working life. And if you have the right usages, which the city had actually set out quite clearly, Main Street retail was very, very straightforward. This is where the retail will be. This is where the Main Street will be. This is what the Main Street will focus on. It all makes logical, strategic sense. Moving it and splitting it simply doesn't. And I know I'm passionate. I know we have a vested interest. We invested there for the reason that we could see that vision would work. I'm very uncomfortable with what is now proposed.
Thank you, Brian. Time's up. Panel members, any questions of Mr. Sullivan, please? If not, thank you. Our next presenter is Mr. Sean Fairfowl. Sean, would you like to make your presentation?
Thank you, panelists, for allowing me to speak this afternoon. I will hopefully be quite brief. My client, the owner of the shopping centre site, is also committed to the Main Street. What was going to be included within this application was a significant entertainment venue, mixed-use venue, located in the car park that currently fronts the southern portion of Chisholm Avenue, between a number of buildings. Unfortunately, the leasing task that was needed just to confirm exactly how the plans would come together hasn't been completed. So the intent is to lodge that as a separate application. So I think in terms of the submitters' concerns that the Main Street is going to be moved or relocated or fragmented, we don't share that belief. We think that this application is a supplement to what we believe will be quite an exciting and vibrant and attractive Main Street with the anchor. The scheme and the master plan do make it quite clear that whilst there are precincts, it's not the only location for each individual use, and there was to be a mix of uses throughout the precinct. That's envisioned by the existing tavern being located within two separate zones. So there's a clear intent or otherwise that whilst the location of uses is to be considered, that there is some flexibility in terms of how they are to be located. The predominant use of this site is for retail purposes. This proposal in terms of the modifications to the facade and the potential for approving a number of land uses represents less than 10% of the overall floor space within this lot. So it's not a significant component of this centre. It's quite a conservative and modest proposal in relation to this centre. A tavern is able to be approved in a number of the zones. As Hyde has identified, it's not a predominant use in any of the zones. And on that basis, we support the officer's recommendation in terms of their assessment of the master plan. The master plan also requires that this portion of the centre include active uses. Active uses generally include a range of things such as shops, cafes, restaurants, tavern uses, liquor licence, premises, entertainment, amusements. Those sort of uses are consistent with active frontages, and that's what we are intending within this application. In relation to the draft conditions, we support the city's recommendation. I've included a couple of minor modifications. In relation to landscaping, we just needed some flexibility so we don't need to come back if there's any modification to the landscaping plan. In terms of the terms of the approval, we would request a 4-year approval. In relation to public art, we'd just like some acknowledgement that public art that was undertaken separate from this application, or prior to this application, I should say, can be credited as part of the public art provision of this application. We're of the view that if the public art requirement is not simply a tax, then it is appropriate to encourage landowners to install art as soon as they're able to, rather than having to wait for an application to install public art as part of an application. So on that basis, we'd like public art, subject to an assessment from the city, but public art that was installed previously to be credited as part of this application. And there's one other condition which I didn't include in my deputation, I apologise, and I've had discussions with the city. As part of our application, we added, we had a suggestion for an additional condition. I've sent the wording through and it's up on your screens now. It just covers off, because we haven't finalised a leasing outcome for each tenancy. It just requires the landowner to provide detailed plans prior to any works that affect the facade, so that council can be satisfied that the layout and the arrangement of the tenancies is going to be appropriate. So we'd included that in our application, but I missed it when we were talking to the city about conditions prior to the lodgement of the RAR, and the city have missed it. So the city has asked whether we're happy for it to be included, and we are happy for it to be included as a condition 10, where the proposed condition 10 becomes 11, or whichever way, whatever numbering that the panel might.
Thank you. That okay, your time.
I have nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. Fairfell. Panel members, any questions of Mr. Fairfell, please?
Yes, I have one.
Yes, Councillor Rouse.
Yeah, just in relation to public artwork, what artwork is the proponent referring to that has already been installed prior, and what is the value of that artwork, please?
But I don't know the value of the artwork. There's a big mural that was painted on the blank wall that is the Woolworths. Big W, sorry, tenancy that is immediately to the south of this, the area that this is going to be developed.
It's my understanding that wall, the artwork there, was paid for by one of the industries as part of their cash in lieu public art. So that would be double dipping if you included that, if that's the case.
Look, if we'd only be looking to include any portion that the landowner contributed to.
Okay.
No, there's no intent. There's no intent for any double dipping.
You're right. Yeah, I didn't mean to infer that, but yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions of Mr. Fairfowl? If not, thank you. Okay, well, we've had presenters' questions before. Council staff, do you wish to make any comment on Mr. Fairfowl's presentation, particularly the changes he has suggested to the conditions on his highlighted submission, and also the request to include condition 11, we'll call it?
Okay. Yeah. No issue with the suggested conditions relating to the extension of the 4-year approval period, and also the condition 11 about the tenancies. So those are fine. In response to the requested change to the advice note for public art, that's something that has not been considered prior to the applicant's submission. We don't have details of what existing public art is on site, and sort of see through this recent discussion that the cost of it is a bit uncertain. So that's something that we're considerate of at the moment. But in any case, the condition for public art was imposed in accordance with the Local Planning Policy 5 for development contributions to public art. That policy has a process for the approval of public art, which is a submission of a public art report that goes through our public art review panel. And the suggested change to the advice note and the crediting of existing public art on site to that public art contribution is not something that's covered by the policy. So it's really not, so the city is not supportive of that change to the advice note for that reason. It would be inconsistent with the policy for which the condition has been imposed. Yeah.
Okay, there was a change also to condition 6, which is the landscaping requirement. Do you have any objection to that?
No objection to that. Sorry, as well. That one was
okay. Thank you. All right, panel members, do any of you have other questions of staff, please? Yes. Moritz.
Thank you very much. So it's Mike Moritz here. Someone throughout my career has spent a lot of time in local government and trying to advocate for main streets. I really wanted to ask the officers in particular their view about this, opposing sort of points of view around whether or not this proposal is going to detract from the longer-term vision for the creation of that main street. And I note that my review of the work that had been done on assessing this proposal against the structure plan doesn't really draw out this point of conflict. So I just wanted to understand where you were at with that particular, the main point of contention with this proposal.
Sure. Look, I suppose the first point to make is that the uses are capable of approval under the planning scheme. They're discretionary uses, and you have regard to obviously the master plan and the objectives for the precinct. I would probably argue if the planning framework was so strongly of a view that these uses should not be located on the main street, then they should have been marked as non-approvable uses outside of that main street environment, but that's not the case. They are capable of approval. We've, obviously, if this application was, proposed along the main street, it would, I suppose, be, entirely consistent with the planning objectives as outlined in the framework. But the proposal is not, obviously. It's proposed somewhere else. So we've assessed it on the point of view, from the perspective of, well, is it appropriate for that location, and have arrived at the view that we think it is. We think it does align with a lot of the other objectives of the master plan, particularly in terms of activating that western frontage. And also, there's one of the key sort of points in the master plan is developing or providing, say, north-south connection from Chisholm Avenue south through the shopping precinct. That currently is a challenge. It goes through a little bit of car parking area. and also the lack of activation along this western side of the shopping centre sort of detracts from that. We think, this having an outward-facing purpose, these uses for hours that, maybe outside of the typical sort of trading hours will certainly assist in that activation. And look, the centre is identified as a secondary centre under State Planning Policy 4.2. A tavern is a desired and licensed restaurant, so desired uses within that framework. And it certainly wouldn't be uncommon to have multiple taverns or licensed restaurants within a secondary centre of this size elsewhere. So we think it's part of the, I suppose, evolution or growth of the centre as a whole, and we don't think that it would be detrimental to Chisholm Avenue or to future development occurring along Chisholm Avenue in the future.
And just to add to that as well, if you refer to figure 5 of attachment 7 in the RA, that the development area is identified as a main street environment in the master plan.
Thank you for those responses.
Thank you. Other panel members, you have questions of the staff? Yes, Karen.
Thank you. Karen Hyde speaking. There were some community concerns around the activities that they perceived might be associated with the tavern or the operation of the tavern itself. Just looking through the conditions, there's nothing in there that talks to an operational management plan for the tavern. Do you see that being a relevant consideration and something that could be conditioned?
We have considered that, but given that the centre is already operating and the desired outcome from the master plan is for an extension of the use of the centre outside of the regular shopping hours, we consider that this development is actually bringing more activity to the centre outside of those hours and providing opportunities for passive surveillance where previously there was none, and that while it is identified that these uses may have a certain stigma, the actual development itself could in fact increase safety around the centre.
Okay, so in terms of how the tavern would operate, hours it would function, and so on, do you feel that that is adequately dealt with within the current range of conditions, or do you see that being the responsibility of the licensing process? How does the city ensure that it operates appropriately?
Yeah, we would agree that the licensing process covers some of those operational aspects, and also as Lockie mentioned, it's an existing operating site, so there's I believe there's a board marketplace and there's an operation. The operating of it will be covered by those processes from the existing supermarket. And also there is a noise assessment that we have requested, as that's probably the one aspect of the future operation of the site that warrants some consideration or some further operational measures, and so we believe the condition that requires that noise assessment will cover off those concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions of the staff? If there is none, thank you, presenters, and we'll now move into the determination of the application. So in order we can debate the item, do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation? Responsible authority recommendation.
I'm happy to move.
Karen Hyde, seconder. Mike Moritz. Karen used to speak to the
thank you. Yes, I support this proposal and accept the analysis and assessment that the officers have done within the RAR. Note that the town centre master plan and have given weight to that as required. And note that, you know, the majority of the uses proposed here are actually P uses. Again, it's been clarified that eating house is one of the predominant uses that can occur in this precinct. And whilst the licensed restaurant is not, it is an activity that is often associated with shopping and retail functions. And I believe it will act to provide additional surveillance to the north and south edge of the western edge of the shopping area. And it's also very well located in the context of the bus port. Again, as I've raised earlier, I note that a tavern is not a predominant use in this precinct, but nor, and it has been clarified, nor is it within other precincts. So I think we take that on its merits. And again, I think that it provides a function which can be reasonably associated with the shopping and the retail, and creates something of an entrance and provides additional surveillance to pedestrian activities in that area, and offers an extra evening activity. I do note that the background that went into the preparation of the master plan did encourage additional nighttime offering and opportunities for food and beverage to spill into surrounding areas, to be outward facing from the shopping area and to sleeve some of the big box activities, and certainly to activate the ground plane and that north-south pedestrian link. And I think in terms of those objectives, this development achieves those. I think other aspects do raise, as other submitters have raised, matters of competition, which I don't believe are valid planning concerns. I think this is a relatively modest extension and refurbishment of some 400 odd square metres. Other matters such as parking, traffic have not been raised with any concern. There is sufficient capacity. And again, the design review panel has supported the quality of the development. There have been some community concerns around the tavern operation, and having heard the city officers, I still believe that an operational management plan for the tavern would be appropriate. So I would like to move an amending motion to suggest a new condition prior to occupancy. An operational management plan is to be submitted and approved for the tavern to the satisfaction of the city.
Okay, we'll take that amendment. Do I have a seconder for that? Moritz, thank you. Karen, to speak to it further.
Only to say that I think, given the level of community concern and, you know, the overall location of this, adjacent car parking areas and so forth, it's appropriate just to understand the operating processes for the tavern specifically. And it doesn't need to be a big onerous document, but something that is quite concise.
Thank you. Mike, Moritz?
Just a process question. The other amendments that were suggested to
we'll get on to
those separately. Yeah.
This is a specific amendment. Do you wish to speak to it, or?
No, I'm happy to.
Councillors, do you wish to speak to that amendment? No? Okay. I won't either, so I'll put that amendment. All in favour? It's amendment number 1.
Thank you. I would also like to propose amendment number 2, which would be to condition 6 to add the words or as otherwise agreed in terms of the landscape plan and revised plan, and also.
Sorry, can I just clarify, or otherwise agreed with the city?
Yes, let me just come to
They're the highlighted.
The highlighted words.
Yep. Okay, so
so
you're moving that.
It will be after the words approved landscape plan dated 27th February 25, inserting the words "or as otherwise agreed by the city," close brackets. Then it continues, "and thereafter maintained," etc., etc.
Okay.
And the second part of this amending motion 2 would be to, for condition 10, replace the written word "to" with a written word "for," and then in brackets the number 4 for the validity of the decision-making period.
Okay, that's amendment 2. Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Mike Moritz, you wish to speak further?
No.
Anyone else wish to speak to those 2 items amending? All right, I'll put those as amendment number 2. All in favour? Carried unanimously.
I don't think there was any issue with the new condition that the applicant proposed, was there? So I'm happy to include that as amendment 3.
Amendment 1 was to include a new condition number 11.
Yep,
on
so
the
this would
operation
now
amendment.
be
This
condition
would be condition number 12.
which would be my amending motion 3, which would be to include the applicant's wording, which I don't have access to, but we had on screen just
We
briefly.
had that on screen. Everyone, panel members familiar with that? Okay, Karen moved. Do I have a seconder to that? Mike Moritz. Okay, so that'll become condition 12. Karen, you wish to speak to the item?
I think this is appropriate, that it gives some level of flexibility, and there seemed to be no objection from the city officers. So.
Thank you. Mike, you wish to speak to it? Councillors, do you wish to speak to that amendment? If not, I'll put the amendment. All in favour? Carried. Any further amendments? There was
Nothing.
mention of the wording in advice note 3.
Not for me.
Not for you?
I'm happy to leave it at that.
Okay, all right. Okay. All right, so you finished your.
I've finished.
Okay, Mike Moritz, would you like to speak to the item?
And I'm happy
As a
to
seconder?
support. Yeah, as a seconder, I'm happy to support the proposal. I'm comfortable that with the whole process and the review and the design review panel's input, and very comfortable with the response provided by the city's officers with respect to the strengths and weaknesses of this proposal, and I see it as an enhancement to the overall centre's future. So happy to support the proposal.
Thank you. Councillors, do any of you wish to speak to the item, for or against?
I can speak, Mr. Presiding Member.
Councillor
And thank you to Ms. Hyde for a comprehensive explanation of the reasons for approval. Pretty much everything that I was going to say, if I needed to. I'd also like to thank Mr. Sullivan for his passionate presentation and his investment in Kwinana up till now. It's very valuable for the Kwinana Centre. I understand his concerns. I mean, the Chisholm Avenue Main Street concept has been a vision now from the city's plans for about nearly 20 years, I think, going back to 2007. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to achieve that dream as yet. But we've heard from the marketplace owners that they may have something in the pipelines there, which would be a valuable addition. You can't force owners to develop, unfortunately, and the master plan is there to protect that vision. So hopefully one day it will occur. So whilst I definitely would prefer these types of developments to be in the main street, I can't take my personal feelings into account when considering this matter. So I don't really have any problems with the parking bays being removed. There's plenty of parking there. The noise impact assessment should alleviate any concern for neighbouring properties. We have a new design concept for the city of Centre, and identifies a secondary civic square, which will be in between the bus port and the marketplace, providing a link to various wells areas. So this development should provide some passive surveillance and activation of that area to complement that second civic centre. So every sort of consultation we do, it's highlighted that the that the residents want nighttime activities and an improved shopping centre, and this development nails both of those for the residents, and so I'll be voting to approve. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Winmar, do you wish to speak to the item?
Yeah, thank you, presiding member. Echoing the sentiments of Councillor Rouse, and once again appreciate Mr. Sullivan and his passionate plea about continued efforts to improve the master plan, which is always at the forefront of the current council's way we're doing business. But that western corridor side of the shopping centre has had inactivity for prolonged periods after hours for a while now. Not bringing the personal side in it, but growing up and living in Kwinana, I believe that that activation of the area may actually be a catalyst to kickstart the other projects which we're looking at doing, to look at assisting elevating some of the opportunities with the Main Street project with Chisholm Ave. And look, the vision that the council's got is we want to enhance the master plan and activate the centre, because we do have a growing population, which is going to be exponentially growing over the next 5 to 10 years. And we believe that the owners of the shopping centre have seen an opportunity to be able to look at how do we attract more people to this area and to this precinct. And I believe that these types of developments, whether they be an eating house or a tavern or a licensed premises, which will be handled by the right regular authorities, will increase activity in that particular area and bring some more vibrancy towards that. And as I said, being able to give the council a position to be able to elevate and as a platform to get support for those other activities and activations as part of the City Precinct project. I also am in support of this application because I see that as an important part to continue with the growth of Kwinana and the activity of that area. And I don't think that the activity at that particular time when the shops are open, at those after hours with that out-facing element, will detract away from an increase usage or frequency of parking. I think the parking should be able to cover that. That's why it hasn't been mentioned. And I'd also like to take into account the work and the efforts that all the presenters have put in to be able to show their passion about the area and their commitment to wanting to be able to bring people to the city centre of Kwinana, and support the application. And thank you very much for your time to be able to speak on the item.
Thank you. Yeah, look, I'm also supportive of the proposal. I think it was the responsible authority report was very comprehensive. It addressed the issues of desirable land uses within the secondary centre. It demonstrated that a tavern can be approved in this area, still giving due regard to the Kwinana City Centre Master Plan in terms of introducing after-hours uses in this western part of the centre to enhance security, particularly also to the bus terminal there that will benefit from increased lighting and activity through that area. The built form and design of the extensions have been detailed in the design review panel assessment, and they've given it strong support. The local planning framework does support the proposal in terms of increasing the usage of the north-south pedestrian route through the centre and beyond. Parking has been addressed as surplus on site at the moment, and other issues such as noise, waste management, signage, etc., and lighting all point to the fact that they support the proposed development. So I think from a safety point of view, it's good to have that side activated. So having said that, I'll put to Karen Hyde to close debate on the item.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody's comments and particularly those of Councillor Rouse and Councillor Winmar, the local knowledge that you provided. Again, I think that goes towards considering this is an appropriate development for that location. Did consider the applicant's request to modify advice notes and potentially to have some influence over the public art contribution, but I think there is a process that the city has in place, and whilst it's a modest development, there's still a value of 3.5 million to this proposal, and I think a contribution at this gateway is appropriate. So I'm happy with the wording of the conditions as per the RAR and the amendments that we have agreed through this process. So that's me.
Thank you. Okay, panel members, I'll put the item as amended to a vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, staff, as well, for your participation and answering our questions. And I also commend you for the comprehensive and responsible authority report. Thank you very much. Okay, item 4 on the agenda was Form 2 DAP applications. There are none. Item 5, Section 31 SAT reconsiderations. There are none. Part C, other business. Item 1 there lists the Supreme Court and SAT applications on foot. And I will close the meeting at 3:35 p.m. Thank you very much, councillors.
Thank you.
See you next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.